Good afternoon. My name is Chad Augustine, and I'm your Pasadena Fire Chief. Today, I would like to highlight 3 topics for your awareness. The first topic I'd like to cover is our Regional Task Force, or RTF. Pasadena Fire is the host city for Regional Task Force 4. Our RTF is a state-supported urban search and rescue team supported by 8 cities across the San Gabriel cities. When deployed, RTF-4 is comprised of over 30 highly trained urban search and rescue personnel that are all firefighters from surrounding cities. And they're ready and prepared to perform any rescue when called upon. For each of the past 3 storms, Pasadena Fire has worked with the Office of Emergency Services, or Cal-OES, to ensure that we have RTF available to perform rescues if mud and debris flow come down the side of the mountain. During the last storm, they did door-to-door assessments in high-risk areas, plus they evaluated hazards and developed rescue plans. Moving forward, your Pasadena Fire will continue to evaluate risks prior to each storm and determine, based on the level of risk, if there's a need for us to advocate for additional RTF services. The second item I'd like to highlight today is the topic of emergency notifications. The recent Eaton fire was a stark reminder of our need to notify our residents quickly. I am again encouraging each of you to sign up for Please and Nixle. These systems allow your city leadership to quickly and very nimbly notify you in the event of an emergency. For Please, you can register at cityofpasadena.net/fire/please. And for Nixle, you can register at nixle.com or text your zip code to 888-777 to opt in. And finally, I'd like to highlight Pasadena's Prepared Pasadena program. In addition to our 21-hour CERT training program, we also have Prepared Pasadena. This is a condensed 4-hour training program that will provide you with essential knowledge, skills, and abilities in case of an emergency. I encourage each of you to consider signing up for this important training. For more information, please go to cityofpasadena.net/fire/community/programs. And next, I'd like to introduce HR Director Tiffany Jacobs-Quinn.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Jacobs-Quinn, Director of the Human Resources Department for the City of Pasadena. Although Human Resources is an internal service department, I wanted to share a bit of information that I think might be relevant to you, our community, about how our employees stepped up for the efforts during this time and how the HR team has engaged to support our workforce. The wind and wildfire disaster has had significant impacts on the city's human resources, our employees, and not just as first responders, but also as survivors. At our peak, there were 567 employees in mandatory evacuation orders or warnings, out of a workforce of about 2,100 employees. 64 employees lost their homes to the Eaton fire. Countless others have been supporting family and friends who lost homes in the Palisades and Eaton fires. Several employees who lost their own homes still came to work during that critical first week at their own choice to help others in their time of need. The dedication of our employees to the Pasadena and Altadena community is nothing short of remarkable. We consider ourselves fortunate that despite the work on the front lines, no employees have suffered a serious injury from the wildfires or windstorm. I'd like to share some information with you about the duties and obligations of our city employees. Did you know that all public employees are considered by law to be disaster service workers in the state of California? That's right, so in an emergency, public employees may be released from their usual duties so that they can be reassigned to help the emergency response. This also means being available at all hours to report to the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC. Human Resources staff worked continuously at the EOC to schedule and deploy our workforce as disaster service workers. The best example of this, and the most impactful, is the evacuation shelter at the convention center. Parks and Public Health led the effort to stand up the shelter immediately and continue to provide leadership and clinical services. HR contacted and scheduled over 200 employees from every other department to work the shelter on 12-hour shifts day and night. Whether it was to work at the check-in desks, set up and monitor dormitories, manage volunteers, serve food, assemble cots, pass out flyers, accept and distribute donations, track down resources, answer questions, or even just lend an empathetic ear, they did it. Here are just a few examples of the types of employees who were reassigned to staff the shelter during that first critical week of the disaster. Office assistants, analysts, librarians, planners, program coordinators, municipal services, HR and risk management, attorneys, parking meter mechanics, accountants, engineers, IT technicians, department heads, and so many more. Human Resources also scheduled employees to serve as disaster service workers to pass out water and PPE to the community and to staff the Disaster Recovery Center. Finally, I also want to share some efforts that our department has done in support of our city workforce and our employees who have lost homes. The Human Resources Department quickly created and maintained a database of impacted employees by cross-referencing home addresses with CAL FIRE maps and, once available, structural damage maps from the city and county. HR has tried to stay in continuous communication with our displaced employees and continues to connect them with resources such as temporary housing, donations, other government assistance, and more. We've worked to provide up to 2 weeks of paid leave for displaced staff. We've hosted representatives from FEMA and SBA on site at City Hall. We've connected our employees with relocation specialists. And we hosted several sessions of town hall meetings with a trauma recovery specialist, a psychologist, who provided mental health tools and resources for our workforce. She urged us to check in with each other and simply ask how you're doing, and then listen. She reminded us to check in with ourselves and to go get a checkup from the neck up anytime if we're struggling. She reminded us to make time for fun and to stay active. We at the Human Resources Department feel this disaster deeply, and we know we have a long road ahead. We are committed to supporting our entire workforce, and especially those 64 survivors, so that they can continue to do all the good work for you, our community, and together we can rebuild. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Kevin McManus from Pasadena Humane.
Thank you, Tiffany. Well, hopefully you all know that Pasadena Humane has been the emergency animal evacuation center for the Eaton Fire, as we have for many other disasters prior. Between January 7th and February 6th, we took in over 1,100 animals into the shelter. That includes a lot of stray animals, but also people's owned animals that we were housing for temporary boarding. Our emergency boarding, we ended up collecting 563 animals and holding those for owners who either had to evacuate or in some cases lost their homes completely due to the fire. Since the fire started, we've actually been able to reunite over 1,500 animals, and that includes a lot of the animals that came into the shelter, but also a number of animals who we were caring for out in the field. And what that means is our animal control officers were actually going out to homes that residents could not get to provide care, food and water, and in some cases veterinary assistance for animals that their owners simply could not get to. We currently have 430 animals in our care, which is a lot for us. We still have a large number of animals who are owned, who we are going to continue boarding for as long as it takes for people to rebuild or to get back on their feet or to get housing that will allow them to get their pets, their family members back. How we've been able to do that is we have a great network of a lot of you all who are fostering animals for us right now, which has been such a huge help. And it's a huge way that if you are interested in helping us immediately, we definitely need that support right now. We also care for wildlife at the shelter, and we of course have seen an uptick in that during this disaster as well. During the fire, we took in 86 wild animals, and usually those are the animals that are so severely injured that they are allowing us to capture them and bring them in. That constitutes 45 different species of animals, including the adorable little bobcat that my colleague is caring for right there. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Derderian, the Public Information Officer from the City of Pasadena.
Well, that concludes our show for today, and I really want to thank our special guests that took time out of their day to highlight all the great work that they've been doing. Last week, we talked about some miscommunication as far as what we're seeing on social media posts. And again, I urge you to please go to citypasadena.net, look at our current press releases, and or call. You can call me direct, 626-744-4755, or our City Service Center at 744-7311, just so that we can help clarify any misinformation out there. This week, some of the hot topics have been that gas leaf blowers, they are still banned. We are getting a lot of complaints from the public. We just updated our information with a press release just the other day, and again, that's on the citypasadena.net website. We're seeing a lot of vendors, commercial entities posting signage on city trees, city parks, city property, which we are trying to go through and take those down. The public is helping us with that. We ask you please leave that to the professionals, though, because we're picking up a lot that are on the ground that are being taken off the trees and the lamppost, et cetera. And next week, I'm proud to announce that we'll have our County Assessor, Jeff Prang, will be our special guest. We will have representatives from our Pasadena Water and Power Department and from our library. So we look forward to seeing you next week at 12:30. Thank you again for tuning in today. Have a great weekend.